In order to make the city whole on its net income from meter enforcement, HPP makes an annual payment to the city of $210,000, increasing annually by the Consumer Price Index. This is an amount that currently exceeds the 2007 net meter enforcement proceeds. So at no time does the city have a situation where it doesn't have at least the same amount of meter net revenue that it had prior to the time this transaction would go through.
We've just watched as Jacob Friedman makes his presentation in front of City Council June 5th, 2008. Jacob stated for the record the amount to be paid to the city for the privilege of enforcing the parking meter. 1,200 parking meters throughout the city of Harrisburg at this point, with additional meters to come. Jacob explained that he wants to make the city whole with his payment each year of $210,000 and adjust it for inflation. And he goes on to say it, he reads it in, it's page 33 on his press, that's bullet point 3. And so what we've done is is that Jacob states for the record that the $210,000 represents what the city of Harrisburg is netting off the tickets generated by these 1,200 meters a year. $210,000 net amount. So what we've done was that we look into this and we find that if there are 1,200 parking meters throughout the city and a ticket is given to each parking meter, being one ticket per meter, 1,200 tickets a day, times 300 days a year. We got rid of 65 days for holidays and weekends. So if we have a net of total amount of 360,000, and these are hypothetical numbers, but just for the record, 360,000 parking tickets issued a year. At $14, the current price for a ticket, that amounts to $5,040,000. If we increase that ticket price to what the cost of a ticket in Philadelphia is, $26, we would have 360,000 times 26, $9,360,000. If we raise that figure to $50, the cost of a parking ticket in Chicago, that figure would represent $18 million, and this is annually for one ticket per meter per day for 300 days. If we would take what the cost of a ticket in New York is, $65, it would return $23,400,000 per year. Now we have to remember that this is hypothetical, but it's one ticket per meter, 1,200 meters. What if this company installed an additional 1,200 meters and doubled the amount of meters, and this company started ticketing on Saturday and Sunday, bringing up the total days even higher? This company started ticketing up till 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. And they can do so in the contract. They can do so in the contract. It's written in the contract, and this contract approved already by Don Walker, Bob Bushy, and Joe Link, the city engineer. These three men have willingly approved this contract, and they stated for the record that they think that they know that this is a good deal, that they are very happy that the city will give away its enforcement of parking meters for the next 75 years for the total of $210,000 plus inflation. So we looked into a couple things, and one thing that Jacob states here is that the city of Chicago has an ongoing request for proposals for 35,000 parking meters. And we just went and looked into that record, and we find that in the city of Chicago, and this is very important now because we'll get into the reason, but look at these numbers. The city of Chicago has an open request for proposals to lease their parking meters long term, and the city of Chicago has 35,000 parking meters. But look at the expense of parking meters in the city of Harrisburg, and most of the meters in downtown are 10 cents per 25 cents per 10 minutes. 25 cents per 10 minutes, or $1.50 an hour. In the city of Chicago, for 25 cents an hour, you can park at almost 24,000 parking meters. For 50 cents an hour, you could park at almost 7,000 parking meters. For 75 cents an hour, an additional 558 parking meters. For $1 an hour, almost 4,000 parking meters. For $1.50 an hour, the same rate as us, 12 meters. And for the rate of $3, the highest rate, it jumps from $1.50 an hour to $3 an hour. There are 895 meters, representing 2.5% of the total meters. So that means that 97% of the parking meters in the city of Chicago are less expensive than the city of Harrisburg's parking meters. And 66% of all the parking meters, almost 24,000, are a quarter for an hour. And that represents 1/6 of the cost that we pay in the city of Harrisburg. Let's look at New York City. New York City. Many of the meters in New York City are the same cost as the city of Harrisburg. 10 minutes for a quarter. And we're talking about Chicago and New York, two of the most expensive cities in the world. New York, one of the most expensive cities in the world, where parking is severe in New York City, with the parking rates in garages being some of the most expensive in the world, at up to and over $1,000 a month per garage. The on-street parking cost is, for most meters in the city, 10 cents, or a quarter for 10 minutes, $1.50 an hour, the same cost as the city of Harrisburg. And why is that important? All right, we already know that in the contract that this company could raise their rates to whatever they want, whenever they want. If the contract goes into law, it's approved by city council, the next day. What happens if the HPP decides to raise rates the same cost as Philadelphia, $26, almost 100% increase. Or they say we're going to charge $50, the same cost as Chicago. Or we're going to make them $65, the same cost in New York. Or we're going to make them even higher. They can do that. It states in the contract they can do it. One thing that Jacob did bring up was that the courts, though, in the parking authority law of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the courts can rate what is to be deemed a reasonable rate. So, and he says this, Jacob goes on to say, well, watch Jacob as he states for the record that the courts could rule against an overburdeningly rate increase, and he states for the record, cut that down.
In either event, under the Parking Authority Enabling Law of the state of Pennsylvania, under which this HPA was created, there is a third standard, and that is the standard of reasonableness. Under the law in Pennsylvania, no person operating these assets may raise the rates beyond what is considered reasonable by a court. So if someone should suggest that the rates are unreasonable, the courts will chop them down.
Well, it's extremely important. That's why I brought it up. The courts can decide that. But look at the burden the courts would have here. If it goes to common pleas court, let's say one of our local judges gets this case, and the defense of HPP will be, Your Honor, our rates are $1.50 an hour at a parking meter. We want to levy a fine of $65. The rates in New York City at meters are $1.50 an hour, and their fines are $65. Apples and apples, oranges and oranges. The city of Chicago, almost all their parking meters are a quarter for an hour, 1/6 of our cost, yet their parking tickets are $50. Could they conceivably go to raise their rates here sixfold to rate them at the same as Chicago? So what Jacob's saying is extremely true here, is that these rates can increase dramatically. They will increase dramatically if HPP wants to do so. And remember, Jacob stating for the record that he wants to make the city whole, and he thinks that this is a fair deal.